How will Putin pay for his war? Gold. How can Putin afford war in Ukraine? His $130 billion in gold hoard helps. So let's have a look at this article, which actually came out before the move into Ukraine, and how people were looking at how Putin could pay for this. So how can Russian President Vladimir Putin afford the costs, both direct and indirect, of a new war in Ukraine? Easy. He's been preparing for years. Russia's central bank reserves now stand at $640 billion, a record. That pile is equivalent to 17 months of Russian export revenues and continues to grow thanks to surging oil prices. Russia exports some 5 million barrels per day of crude oil, plus 2.5 million barrels per day of refined petroleum products, according to Cohen & Co., amounting to about 10% of the global oil trade, with Brent crude hitting an 80-year high of $88.88 this morning. Well, actually, this article is from the 31st of January. We'll have a look at what the price of oil is in a minute. That amounts to more than 600 million a day in petrocash. On top of that is 23 billion cubic feet per day of natural gas exports, roughly 2 billion cubic feet a day of which now transits through Ukraine, worth another 400 million a day at today's elevated European price, and we'll have a look at that in a sec as well. Importantly, it's no longer apt to refer to Russia's fossil fuel income as petrodollars, as Putin has been working hard to de-dollarize the Russian economy. Back in 2013, Russia received dollars for 95% of its exports to Brazil, India, South Africa, and China. Today, according to the Congressional Research Service, after a decade of de-dollarization, just 10% of that trade is in greenbacks. And Putin has created new payment system processing systems as a replacement for SWIFT, from which Biden has threatened to cut off Russia. Well, they have. However, it's interesting that it's only a select number of banks, and they're also not sanctioning Russia's oil and gas yet. In 2015, after US sanctions, Moscow launched the Mir payment platform, now even connected to Apple Pay. Well, I don't think Apple Pay is going to agree to that if they haven't already cut it off. Putin has increasingly replaced trade in dollars with gold, from a record low of $2 billion worth of gold in 1995. Russia has piled up a mountain of it, now worth $130 billion, or 20% of total reserves. That's equivalent to about 72 million 1-ounce gold coins, or 4.5 million pounds. Only the US, Germany, and Italy hold more gold. Though Russia mines a lot of gold, platinum, and palladium itself, some of the pile may be coming from friends like Venezuela, which in 2019 reportedly loaded 20 tons of it onto a Russian Boeing 777, part of a liquidation of some 300 tons from Caracas coffers. Putin is not the only gold bug. Central banks have added 4,500 tons of gold reserves over the past decade. According to Johns Hopkins University economics professor Steve Henke, Russia's central bank has displayed high competence in managing the ruble, and it shows. Since 2016, it has held almost steady at 0.013 per dollar, though dropping about 8% in recent months during the Ukraine military buildup. Well, we know it's fallen dramatically since then, and they have closed their stock market as well, and banned foreigners from being able to sell. And yes, I admit I have some shares in some Russian oil stocks, and I'm happy for it to sit there. I was never going to sell it anyway. That is a longer term hold, which I'm happy to hold, and it's only a small portion of my portfolio. If it goes to zero, it goes to zero. It doesn't bother me one little bit. Clearly, Putin has been putting funds to work, investing in his military. Spending ramped up to a peak of $90 billion per year in 2013, ahead of his Crimea invasion. Well, some argue that they had a referendum, and 95% said that of Crimeans wanted to be part of Russia, and so it wasn't an invasion. Anyway, people use their own words. And totaled $60 billion in 2020, according to World Bank data. This pales in comparison to US military spending of $780 billion and China's $250 billion in 2020. Though Russia does spend more as a percentage of GDP at 4%, Putin could likely ramp that spending more if he wanted to, according to BNP Paribas data. Russia's public debt is 18% of GDP, which I've talked about in other videos, while total external debt is less than 30% of GDP. Ukraine's debt load is 80% of GDP, while the US is more than 100%. I think it's about 120, isn't it? Last time I looked. And the one kind of money Biden can't freeze? Gold. Russia's central bank to resume gold purchases in the domestic market on Monday, so they've already started. And Ben tweeted this out the other day. You were warned in 2019 this war is financial more than it is kinetic. If you're waiting for escalating kinetic action, you'll miss the real war, cyber and financial. And it was a tweet that he shared on the 15th of November in 2019, where Vladimir Putin, the dollar enjoyed great trust around the world, but for some reason it is being used as a political weapon, imposing restrictions. Many countries are now turning away from the dollar as a reserve currency. US dollar will collapse soon. That's Vladimir Putin there. And even the banksters are saying SWIFT can be circumvented. Jamie Dimon warns that SWIFT sanctions may bring unintended consequences, can be circumvented. So what are those unintended consequences? Well, I think we're soon going to find out. Now, Jim tweeted this the other day as well. Frontline reporters in Ukraine are risking their lives to tell us what they can learn. As for the rest, I'm surprised there hasn't been more reporting on General Gerasimov, the military mover behind Putin. He specializes in multi-dimensional war, including kinetic, finance, and cyber. And coming in from Zero Hedge, World Bank, there will be alternatives to Russian gas in 5 years. Okay, cool. What do we do? What does the world do between now and then? This is ridiculous. Now, here's Jeff Snyder, Mr. Eurodollar Man, and he retweeted this Washington Post article. Historical sanctions on Russia had roots in Zelensky's emotional appeal. Now, Jeff says even Washington Post has to admit the truth. Without SWIFT, Russian institutions will be forced to fall back on a telex network and other less convenient and more costly alternatives. Wow, inconvenience the Russian bankers. SWIFT is nothing more than messaging. And I did a video, the last video I did, where Jim Rickards was saying the same thing. That all it means is, you use older technology to do this, because SWIFT is nothing more than a messaging platform. And Peter here is retweeted first squawk. Russian minister says we are working on digital one world, one currency for trade. Local media. Peter says gold backed. Now, I've done a video on this. I'll put a link in the description below. And the US dollar is down against the yuan today. The Russian central bank governor said they have a system that can replace SWIFT internally. And Jim tweets here, Europe's natural gas will now go to China. Someone should give the sanctions groupies a lesson in global markets. After Russia's Gazprom has announced a major gas deal with China with the construction of a new oil pipeline to supply 50 billion cubic meters a year to Beijing. They're creating a separate economy. And who's going to suffer? Well, Europe's going to suffer first and foremost. And then eventually, I think the US dollar is going to. And from Zero Hedge, overuse of dollar sanctions could compel other actors to try to replace dollar transactions, as Russia already did to some extent following earlier sanctions. Goldman. Yeah, I think there's going to be some unforeseen consequences out of this. And here, Peter retweets a Bloomberg article. Gold outshines treasuries to be top hedge against Ukraine risk. He says big shifts underway. Gold outshines treasuries to be top hedge against Ukraine risk. Bullion has gained more than bonds, Swiss franc, and yen. It's now about buying gold, Global CIO Office says. And I'll put a link in the description below to this article. And when we have a look at the commodities, we can see And by the way, I'm recording this on Wednesday, the 2nd of March. So I'll probably put this video up tomorrow. You've got crude oil, Brent oil. Well, what, $106 a barrel clearly there. We got natural gas up. Yeah, it's all green, isn't it? It's all up. And we got gold and silver. Looks slightly down right now, but have a look at the price. They are up from where they were yesterday. And copper's looking nice. All the commodities are looking very, very good. And yeah, I think we are absolutely crazy what our global leaders have been doing over the last, well, I mean, you could argue for a long, long time. But in particular, the last couple of years with the cough, the cerveza sickness, and now this. And yeah, I don't pretend to be an expert on foreign affairs issues, but it is something that I do follow. It is something that is of interest to me because it's all linked. Economics and political policies, foreign policies, they're all linked because it always comes back to the almighty dollar, doesn't it? So how does Russia pay for their war? Well, it seems like they're going to pay for it using gold, using their natural resources. Anyway, guys, if you like this video, please hit that like button. Really do appreciate it. Love to see your thoughts and opinions in the comments below. Take care, everyone, and I'll see you all again on another episode of Finance Uncut.